The Kansas City Chiefs have been one of the most talked about teams in the NFL this offseason. The trade of Tyreek Hill and all the new additions on the roster have made the Chiefs a pretty interesting topic of discussion as we head into the 2022 NFL season. If you are new here, welcome to the channel, and consider subscribing and dropping a like on the video if you guys do enjoy it. We're on the road to 3,000 subscribers and we're less than 500 away, but let's get into the video about the Kansas City Chiefs and their pretty crazy offseason. Now, before we really get into all the moves that the Chiefs made this offseason and how different the roster is going to look next year, I always like to give kind of some background of how the Chiefs got here and their season last year and what kind of happened to get to this point. Now, the Chiefs had a very successful season last year compared to about 30 other NFL team standards. Making it to the AFC Championship game is not an easy thing to do, but as we've seen from the Chiefs over the course of the last few years, they're kind of looking towards winning Super Bowls at this point because they have made 4 AFC Championship games and have appeared in 2 Super Bowls, all in the last 4 years. So the Chief fans, they were a little bit disappointed with their season only being able to make it to the AFC Championship game, as they fell a little bit short to the Cincinnati Bengals 27-24 in an overtime thriller. It was actually a fantastic game. The playoffs all last year were very good, but the Chiefs in the first half were pretty dominant in this game. Patrick Mahomes had probably his best postseason half in his career. He completed 18 of 21 passes for 220 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Chiefs had a commanding lead over the Bengals. And as a fan of the game in the NFL, I thought the game was pretty much over. I didn't think the Bengals had any chance of coming back, because when you have a high-powered offense like the Chiefs with that sizable of a lead, I didn't see any way that the Bengals were going to battle back, but somehow they flipped a switch on defense and the Chiefs got a little bit stagnant, and the Bengals were able to force overtime and get away with the victory. It's pretty funny to look back and discuss all of this now, because it wasn't too long ago when the Chiefs were 3-4 heading into week number 8, and so many people had concerns about them making the playoffs, and then the Chiefs go all the way to the AFC Championship game and are really a play or two away from returning to their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. But now we can kind of shift focus to what they did this offseason and how different the roster is actually going to look going into next year, and how their division has substantially improved as well. One of the biggest things this entire offseason was when Tyreek Hill was traded to the Miami Dolphins for 5 draft picks, a 2022 first-round pick, a second-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and then a 4th and 6th-round pick in the 2023 draft. And at the time, this set the NFL world on fire. Nobody could believe that Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill were not going to be teamed up any longer. But when you really look into things and look at the Chiefs dynasty and kind of the future of their team, it really was the smart decision for them to unload Tyreek Hill for such a large haul. The Chiefs defense has kind of been struggling the last couple of years as they've had to pay a lot of their offensive players. Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, rebuilding the offensive line. It's taken a lot of resources and it's kind of taken away from the defense a little bit. It's really been Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu, and they've kind of struggled to get other pieces on that side of the ball. But unloading Tyreek Hill, not having to pay him $100 million, that gives them more assets to improve their defense, make their team overall more sound, more complete, and take less pressure off of Patrick Mahomes having to carry that roster in the playoffs and have to put up 30, 35 points a game to win routinely in the NFL. So essentially, the Chiefs kind of bet on their drafting, they bet on their use of resources, and they think that they're going to be able to build a better team. The Chiefs may not be as good this year as they were the past couple of years because Tyreek Hill is really that dynamic and special as a player. But if you really look down the line for the Chiefs and some of these young players that they drafted this year with a large draft class, they wouldn't have had all of this young talent and players if they kept Tyreek Hill. So the Chiefs are kind of gambling on their future, and I think it was a pretty smart decision if you really want to continue being a powerhouse down the line. To kind of help recoup the loss of Tyreek Hill, they brought in Juju Smith-Schuster on a 1-year, $10.75 million deal. And at a time, Juju Smith-Schuster was viewed as a borderline wide receiver 1. When he was playing with Antonio Brown, he was really excelling. He almost had 1,000 yards as a rookie, and then he followed up in 2018 with 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns. And then he kind of got hurt. He was kind of battling some injuries the last few years, and he really hasn't been able to return to that form. It'll be interesting to see what Juju Smith shows up for the Chiefs. You can't really get a better situation than playing with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So if he is the player that we saw in 2018 when he put up those numbers, I think we'll see him in Kansas City being that guy. And if that season was a product of Antonio Brown going off and kind of the prime of the Steelers, then we'll know that Juju Smith-Schuster was not as good as he showed that year. And combined with the addition of Juju, they also brought in Marquez Valdez-Scantling on a 3-year, $30 million deal worth up to $36 million. And the Chiefs got a lot of flack for this. People believe that he was paid way too much money. But I'll be really interested to see how MVS is with the Chiefs. With the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, he was mainly a deep threat. He has usually some of the highest yards per catch in the entire league and will also be used for the Chiefs as one of their deep threats. And that was a big use of Tyreek Hill. And I think MVS will be one of those players used to kind of replicate Tyreek Hill in his deep shots with Patrick Mahomes. As far as halfbacks go, the Chiefs brought back many of their players from last year, and they're going to be kind of using a running back by committee. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is obviously the running back one, but he really hasn't been able to stay healthy throughout his entire career. So the Chiefs also brought in Ronald Jones from the Bucs on a one-year deal. So he'll step in with Jared McKinnon and Derek Gore, and they have a pretty decent backfield. They all can do kind of different things, and I think Ronald Jones would be kind of their big body who they use, short yard situations. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jared McKinnon, and Derek Gore will all be kind of used in that pass catching and kind of change of direction style. And another player I would really like to mention is Justin Ross. I don't know how much he's going to play next year for the Chiefs or if he's even going to make the roster, but I made a video on him about a month ago, and I really like his potential. I think it was a steal that they got him as an undrafted free agent. And of course, the Chiefs still have Josh Gordon and Mecole Hardman. Although these aren't household names, the Chiefs do have a lot of depth and quality players in their receiving core and the running back room. And they still have the best tight end in the NFL in Travis Kelce. And their offensive line, they brought back all of their starters from last year. And according to Pro Football Focus, they had the 5th best line in the entire NFL last year. If we look back to the end of 2021, when the offensive line was a huge problem in the Super Bowl and during the Chiefs playoff run, it really turned into a strength last year when they kind of rebuilt it. They traded for Orlando Brown, they brought in Joe Thuney, they drafted Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and it was a fantastic job that the Chiefs did to kind of rebuild their offensive line in only one offseason. That's pretty unheard of, and I think that offensive line is going to continue to get better as the young guys continue to improve. And where things are going to be really interesting for me is their defense. I'm not really concerned about their offense that much. When you have the best offensive coach in the league in Andy Reid, and you have the best quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes, you're going to figure things out on the offensive side of the ball. Regardless of who your receivers or running backs are, you're going to figure it out. And I think the Chiefs are going to be just fine on the offensive side of the ball. Where I think they could run into some potential problems or not really be as good as they want early on is their defense, because they have a lot of new players, they have a lot of young players that will kind of take some time to adjust and get ready for the NFL. The Chiefs spent most of their draft picks this year on their defense, and we're going to get into some of those picks here. The first round pick from the Dolphins was Trent McDuffie, a cornerback out of Washington. They needed to help out their depth in the secondary, and he was really viewed as one of the best corners in the draft. And then they went out and got Chris Jones some help. Frank Clark has been kind of underwhelming since he was traded for by the Chiefs, but I don't really know how long he's going to remain in Kansas City. This may be his last year. So they brought in George Karlaftis to kind of develop and maybe be their top pass rusher in case Frank Clark doesn't really work out this year and has another bad season for the Chiefs. And then their top second round pick was Sky Moore, who I've not mentioned yet. He's going to join the stable of receivers that the Chiefs have gotten this offseason. And he's kind of like a Tyreek Hill type of player. He's 5'10", he's a little bit on the smaller side, but he's also super fast. He runs in the 4.3, 4.4 range. He's also very quick, and he's going to be a versatile weapon for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to use, and he's going to be another weapon that Andy Reid has at his disposal. And I think all these new additions are going to be big parts of the Chiefs offense for next season. Then later in the second round, they also brought in Brian Cook. I don't know if he's going to start right away for the Chiefs, as they already have Juan Thornhill and their newly signed Justin Reed, but he's a very talented player out of Cincinnati, and he'll more than likely be used for some special things for the Chiefs and then eventually be developed into their starter. And then they got Leo Chanel to kind of pair with Nick Bolton, who had a fantastic rookie season. So the Chiefs are going really young on their defense. All of these new additions are kind of the forefront of their future and how good their defense is going to be. If they hit on most of these picks on their defense, it's going to be a very scary unit down the line to pair it with that offense, which is always going to be one of the top in the league when you have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and all the other talent the Chiefs have on that side of the ball. We also let the AFC West got substantially better this offseason. Every single team made a bunch of different moves. The Broncos got Russell Wilson, Randy Gregory. The Raiders got Devontae Adams. They brought in a new coaching staff. They brought in Chandler Jones. The Chargers, they brought in Khalil Mack. They brought in JC Jackson. They shored up their defense. But I still think that the Chiefs are going to be just fine, and I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they should be the favorite to win the division. If you've won the division for 6 straight seasons, I think you should always be the favorite until someone finally steals the crown from you. But all in all, anytime you have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, I think your team is going to be just fine. And I do believe that the Chiefs will be going to the playoffs again this year, and they will be a team that nobody wants to see in the playoffs. Yes, it's fair to be concerned about the departure of Tyreek Hill and Tyrann Mathieu, but you can also acknowledge all the moves that the Chiefs made this offseason and how much more young talent and depth they were able to acquire this offseason to potentially continue their reign over the division for years to come. But anyway, Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and drop a like on the video if you guys do enjoy it. Let me know what you guys think of the Kansas City Chiefs and if they're going to be a Super Bowl contender this year. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.